On my 30th birthday, I posted a picture of a wedding dress on my Instagram. Within minutes, Julian, the childhood friend who had rejected me 99 times, called me. He specifically told me to put on the dress and meet him at City Hall. He said he had a massive birthday surprise for me. But when I stood outside the City Hall entrance, shivering in the cool breeze, I heard him laughing with his frat boyfriends behind me.
See?
I told you she'd actually show up in a wedding dress. Pay up, boys. $100 each. Then, Julian turned to me, winking and flashing that arrogant smirk of his. Come on, Maya. It was just a joke. You didn't seriously think we were getting married, did you? But hey, if you're that desperate to get married, you can always just go inside and grab a random guy. His friends burst into obnoxious laughter. I rolled my eyes. Honestly, I did have an appointment to get married today. But my groom wasn't him. A few minutes later, when I walked out of the building arm in arm with another man, holding our marriage certificate, Julian's face went completely pale. Watching Julian collect cash from his friends one by one, a cold realization washed over me. Today was just another bet. Another game to make me look like a fool. The guys who lost the bet handed over their money, rolling their eyes at me in disgust. Maya, do you have any idea how much money I've lost because of you? Get a grip, seriously. We've told you 1,000 times, Julian is out of your league. Did you honestly think he'd ever marry you? You've been played like a fiddle at least 10 times by now. How do you keep falling for this? You are hopelessly stupid. I bit my bottom lip so hard I tasted copper. My nails dug into my palms. After pocketing the cash, Julian walked over to me. He actually had the nerve to look concerned. What's wrong, Maya? Aren't you happy? He turned to his friends and barked. Hey, shut up, you jerks. Today is Maya's birthday. Don't ruin it for her. Just when I thought a sliver of his humanity had returned, Julian pulled a $10 bill from his pocket and held it out to me. He grinned. Thanks to you, I just made $2,000. Here's $10. Go buy yourself a slice of cake. Happy birthday. His friends roared with laughter again. Julian, you're too nice. Watch out, or Maya's going to fall even crazier in love with you. Look at her. She literally wore a wedding dress. She's like a beggar begging for scraps, desperately trying to marry into the Vance family. If this were the old me, I would have broken down in tears by now. I would have begged Julian to stop hurting me, to stop treating my heart like a toy. But this time, I calmly took the $10 bill from his hand. Thanks. The copy fee for the marriage certificate is $10 and I didn't bring cash. Julian froze. Then, he let out a sharp, mocking laugh. Maya, did you leave your brain at home today? You're still dreaming about marrying me? Are you blind? I was playing you. Honestly, I've seen desperate girls, but you really take the cake. He shook his head with disgust, looking at me as if I were a piece of trash stuck to a shoe. Even though I had prepared myself for this, his words still pierced my heart like sharp arrows. I actually found out about his little bet yesterday. Someone had commented on my dress photo, saying I only bought it because I was jealous of Julian's new girlfriend, Serena. The man I had loved for 8 years knew exactly how much I adored him. And because of that, he knew exactly how to hurt me the deepest. He had completely forgotten the promise he made to me when we were younger. Maya, if neither of us is married by 30, let's just get married to each other. Today, I turned 30, and I was indeed getting married. I just hadn't told Julian that my groom wasn't him. The wedding dress I chose was a simple, ankle-length gown. My fiancé and I had picked it out together. I lifted my skirt and walked past Julian toward the City Hall entrance. But he grabbed my wrist, pulling me back. Stop acting, Maya. Who are you trying to fool? If you're really that desperate to get hitched, go inside and drag some random guy to the altar. Do me a favor and get married so you'll finally stop stalking me. I looked at his face, feeling too exhausted to even get angry. I just felt a profound, heavy sadness. The Julian who used to chase down bullies just to make them apologize to me was completely gone. This stranger had taken his place. I shook my head, trying to pull my hand away. Suddenly, a voice called out, Julian. It was Serena. Julian instantly let go of my wrist. To prove his loyalty to her, he pulled a sanitizing wipe from his pocket and meticulously wiped his hand, as if I were contagious. Serena walked up, looking confused. Julian, what are you doing here? Then she looked at me. Maya? Are you getting married today? You're even wearing a wedding dress. Julian looked around nervously. He didn't want Serena to know he had organized a bet around me. In a panic, he grabbed Brad from his group of friends and shoved him next to me, laughing loudly. Serena, you're so smart. You guessed it. Today is the big day for Maya and Brad. We all came out here to support them and wish them well. His friends instantly caught on and chimed in. Yeah, Serena, we're celebrating Maya and Brad today. I looked at Brad, who was shorter than me and wearing a greasy, stupid grin, and felt a wave of nausea. Seeing that Serena was still skeptical, Julian pushed Brad and me toward the doors. Go on, go get registered. Serena wants to see. I stumbled forward from his push. Brad actually had the audacity to grab my hand. He whispered in my ear, Look, Maya, Julian's never going to want you. But you've got a nice face and a decent body. I guess we could make it work. I lost it. I ripped my hand away from his greasy grip and leaned against the wall, dry heaving. Julian immediately mocked. Oh my God, Maya. Are you pregnant? Is this a shotgun wedding? Brad, you dog. Nice job. Serena joined in, her face beaming with fake sweetness. Maya, I was so worried about your love life. I had no idea you'd find a husband and get pregnant so quickly. Congratulations. I stood straight and looked coldly at Julian, who was still laughing hysterically. You're right, I said quietly. I'm getting married today. But not to any of you losers. My fiancé is inside getting our queue number. Save your congratulations for him. Julian's laughter died instantly. Just then, my phone buzzed. I answered it, nodding a few times. The second floor? Okay, I'll go up first. Sounds good. I hung up, turned to the stunned Julian, and said, I wore this dress because my fiancé hired a photographer to capture our day. This is the simplest gown of the 7 dresses I bought. It's easy to move in. Since you're all here, you might as well take the invitations. My wedding is on the 10th of next month. You're welcome to attend. I pulled the elegant, gold-embossed invitations from my bag and handed them out. When I reached Julian, he refused to take it. One of his friends looked at the card and gasped. The Grand Pierre Hotel? That's the most expensive venue in the city. Maya, did you land a sugar daddy? He must be loaded. Julian's lips twitched, his eyes filled with utter disdain. Maya, you really are committed to this act, aren't you? Fake invitations? Booking the Grand Pierre? This is pathetic, even for you. With 2 fingers, he took the invitation from his friend and tossed it onto the street. Serena glanced at the invitation on the ground and sighed. Honestly, Maya, I have to side with Julian on this. There isn't even a photo of the groom on the card. It looks totally fake. We hadn't had time to take engagement photos yet. Serena stepped closer, grabbing my hand with a look of pity. Look, I know how you feel about Julian. Julian suddenly went tense. Serena, let me explain. Serena waved him off. Julian, you don't have to explain. I know you two grew up together. You have history. She turned back to me. Maya, woman to woman, I get it. But you can't force love. Julian has told you a million times that he only sees you as a sister. And since I'm practically your older sister now, let me give you some advice. Stop this embarrassing show. The more you do, the more people are going to laugh at you. The crowd behind her murmured in agreement. Serena is so sweet and understanding. She's a class act. Only someone as nice as Serena would try to save Maya from embarrassing herself. Serena looked at me with pure condescension. Come on, Maya. Let me help you take that dress off. It was always like this. Whenever Julian humiliated me, Serena would step in to play the saint. And over time, Julian became convinced his girlfriend was an angel, while I was just a bitter, pathetic villain. I was about to push her away when she noticed the tag sticking out of the back of my dress. She grabbed it and read it aloud. A designer dress? From this season's collection? She sighed. Maya, my heart breaks for you. Did you rent this? You didn't even take the tag off. You really don't have to go this far. Julian's expression turned even more vicious. He pulled Serena into his arms, kissing her hair. Serena, you're too good for this world. Why are you even wasting your breath on a pathological liar like her? Serena squeezed Julian's shirt, playing the worried friend. Julian, I'm sure Maya didn't mean any harm. It's just a girl's vanity. She just needs someone to guide her. My cheeks burned with humiliation. I clenched my fists and explained, my fiancé bought it for me yesterday. I just forgot to cut the tag. Save it. If you lie enough, you start believing your own BS. Julian chin gestured toward me. If you actually have a fiancé, Maya, call him out here. Let us see him. His friends immediately chimed in. Yeah, let's see this imaginary billionaire. Show us the guy who can afford designer clothes and the Grand Pierre. Isn't today your wedding day? Where is the groom? We were standing right at the entrance of City Hall, and a crowd of strangers was starting to gather, whispering and staring at us. Brad, whom I had pushed away earlier, pointed at me and yelled to the crowd. Hey everyone, look at this girl. She tried to ruin someone else's relationship, got caught, and now she's pretending she's getting married today. Let's see if her imaginary groom actually exists. People stopped to point and whisper. Some even pulled out their phones to record me. The autumn wind felt freezing. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to shrink away. Serena shivered slightly. Julian immediately took off his coat and draped it over her shoulders. He glared at me. Maya, call your fake husband already. If Serena catches a cold because of your little stunt, you're going to pay for it. I lowered my head. I felt frozen from the inside out. To be honest, I wasn't even sure when my fiancé would arrive. We had only met once. As the minutes ticked by and nobody appeared, the crowd around us grew larger. Phone cameras were practically shoved in my face. I kept backing up, trying to escape the lenses until I bumped into a solid chest. "I'm sorry, Before I could finish, a pair of strong, warm hands rested on my shoulders. I should be the one apologizing. "I'm sorry, Maya. The traffic was awful. I'm late." The voice was deep, smooth, and right at my ear. My heart leaped into my throat. I was almost too afraid to turn around. But the man behind me, sensing my tension, gave my shoulder a reassuring squeeze. He took 2 steps forward, completely shielding me from the crowd. "Everyone, today is my wedding day with my beautiful bride. Please have some chocolate." As soon as he spoke, his assistant stepped forward from a sleek black SUV, carrying a large basket of expensive, artisanal chocolates to hand out. Wow, this packaging is gorgeous. These must be expensive. The groom is so handsome, and the bride is stunning. They look perfect together. See? She wasn't lying. They really are getting married. Who was the jerk calling her a homewrecker earlier? The crowd's attitude flipped instantly. They turned around, looking for Brad. Seeing the tables turn, Brad tried to sneak away, which only made him look guiltier. It was him. He tried to ruin this lovely couple's big day. The handsome groom standing in front of me, Ethan Carter, gave his assistant a slight nod. The assistant understood immediately, heading off to deal with Brad. Someone in the crowd gasped. "Wait, he looks so familiar, isn't he? Oh my God. He's Ethan Carter, the CEO of Carter Enterprises. He was on the cover of Forbes last month." My jaw dropped. I had met Ethan through a blind date arranged by our families. We had only met once. Both of us agreed we wanted to settle down, so we casually agreed to get married. I had no idea he was that Ethan Carter. The onlookers quickly deleted their videos and offered us warm smiles and congratulations. "Happy wedding day. Wishing you a lifetime of happiness." Once the crowd dispersed, Ethan turned and gently took my hand. "Shall we go in, Maya? Let's get our license." I followed him like a robot, my brain completely blank. I couldn't help but glance back one last time. Julian was frozen on the sidewalk. His face was a mix of confusion and pure, boiling rage. I didn't understand. What did he have to be angry about? After all, he was the one who had spent the last decade treating my devotion like a cheap parlor trick, a reliable ego boost he could summon whenever he felt bored or insecure. He had wanted me to be his eternal backup plan, the pathetic, lovesick girl waiting in the wings while he lived his life. But as the heavy glass doors of City Hall swung shut behind Ethan and me, sealing out the damp autumn air and the murmurs of the crowd, Julian's pale, furious face faded into the background. The lobby of City Hall was warm, smelling of old paper, polished wood, and wet umbrellas. It was a stark contrast to the freezing sidewalk outside. "Are you all right?" Ethan's voice was low, a quiet rumble that seemed to ground me instantly. He hadn't let go of my hand. His palm was warm, dry, and steady, nothing like the frantic, sweaty grip of Brad or the dismissive, fleeting touches Julian had thrown my way over the years. "I'm fine," I whispered, though my heart was still hammering against my ribs. "I'm sorry about that out there. They've always been like that. I didn't mean to drag you into my personal drama." Ethan stopped walking. We were standing near a towering marble pillar. He turned to face me fully, his dark eyes searching mine with an intensity that made me hold my breath. He was wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit, and up close, the subtle scent of cedarwood and rain clung to him. "Maya," he said, his voice dropping an octave, entirely serious. "You didn't drag me into anything. Today is our wedding day. If anyone is making a scene, they are disrespecting my wife. You never have to apologize to me for standing up to people who don't deserve your kindness." My wife. The words felt foreign, heavy, and strangely beautiful. Besides, Ethan added, a faint, rare smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I believe you have a fee to pay." I blinked, then remembered. I reached into my small clutch and pulled out the crumpled $10 bill Julian had handed me outside. Looking at the green paper, a sudden wave of dark amusement washed over me. "The universe has a twisted sense of humor," I murmured, smoothing out the bill. He thought he was mocking me. He actually paid for our marriage certificate. Ethan looked at the bill, then at me. The amusement in his eyes deepened. "In that case, let's make sure his contribution is put to excellent use." We walked up to the registry desk on the second floor. The clerk, a kindly middle-aged woman with reading glasses perched on her nose, smiled warmly at us. "Names, please?" "Ethan Carter," he said clearly. "Maya Lynn." I followed, my voice steadier now. As we filled out the forms, I watched Ethan's elegant cursive flow across the paper. My hands trembled slightly when it was my turn to sign, but Ethan quietly placed his hand over mine, stabilizing my wrist. "Take your time," he whispered. I took a deep breath and signed my name next to his. When the clerk asked for the $10 filing fee, I proudly slid Julian's $10 bill across the counter. The clerk stamped our marriage certificate with a satisfying, heavy thud, smiled, and handed us the gold-embossed folder. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Carter," she said. "I wish you a lifetime of happiness." Holding the folder, I felt an incredible, weightless sensation in my chest. The heavy, suffocating invisible chains that had bound me to Julian Vance for 8 long years had finally snapped. I was free, but our exit wasn't going to be entirely peaceful. When we walked back down the marble staircase and through the glass doors, Julian was still standing there. Serena was by his side, clutching his arm, but her sweet expression had turned sour and anxious. The rest of their friends had dispersed, likely embarrassed by the arrival of a real-life billionaire, but Julian's pride wouldn't let him leave. As soon as he saw us walk out, his eyes locked onto the gold-embossed folder in my hand. His jaw clenched, so hard I thought it might crack. "Maya," he called out, stepping forward and ignoring Serena's tug on his sleeve. "Stop this. This is ridiculous." Ethan stopped, his arm securing me firmly against his side. He didn't look angry. He looked entirely bored by Julian's existence, which I knew would infuriate Julian more than any shouting match. "Mr. Vance, is there a reason you are still loitering outside our wedding venue?" Ethan asked, his tone polite but cuttingly cold. "Our wedding venue?" Julian scoffed, though his voice lacked its usual arrogant edge. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. "Maya, you've got to be kidding me. You met this guy once. On a stupid blind date your aunt set up. You don't know anything about him. You're just doing this to get back at me because of Serena, aren't you?" "Julian, please," Serena whispered, her face pale. "Let's just go. This is embarrassing." "No. Serena, look at her." Julian snapped, his composure slipping entirely. "She's wearing a wedding dress. She's been chasing me for 8 years, begging me to look at her, and now suddenly she's married to a stranger? She's doing this out of spite. She's trying to make me jealous." I looked at the man I had spent my entire 20s crying over. In the past, if Julian had yelled at me like this, I would have stumbled over my words, desperately trying to apologize, trying to appease him so he wouldn't hate me. I would have bared my soul just to get a scrap of his approval. Now, looking at him, I felt absolutely nothing but a profound sense of waste. I had wasted 8 years of my youth on a boy who had never grown up. "Julian," I said, my voice calm, ringing clear in the crisp autumn air. "You rejected me 99 times. Every single time, you told me I wasn't your type, that I was too boring, too plain, and that you only saw me as a sister. You made bets with your friends about how far I would go for you. You humiliated me in public today on my 31st birthday." 31st. Julian blinked, genuinely confused. "Your birthday is today. You're 30. "I turned 30 last year, Julian," I said, a bitter smile touching my lips. "You forgot last year, too. You forgot every year. The promise we made to get married if we were both single at 30? That was last year. I waited. I gave you one final year to see if there was any truth to anything you had ever said to me. But you spent the last 12 months parading Serena around, making sure I knew exactly how worthless I was to you." Julian froze. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked like a man who had suddenly realized the floor beneath him was made of thin glass. "Ethan didn't buy me this dress to show me off, and I didn't marry him to make you jealous," I continued, leaning slightly into Ethan's warmth. "I married him because when I am with him, I don't have to beg to be seen. I don't have to be a punchline to a joke. Now, if you'll excuse us, my husband and I have a lunch reservation." Julian stepped forward, his hand reaching out instinctively. "Maya, wait. We need to talk." Before his fingers could even come close to my sleeve, Ethan stepped in front of me, his massive frame completely blocking Julian from my sight. The air around Ethan grew instantly hostile. "Mr. Vance," Ethan said, his voice quiet but carrying a lethal weight. "If you attempt to touch my wife, or if you or your associates approach her again, I will personally ensure that Carter Enterprises pulls its funding from your family's upcoming commercial estate project. I believe your father is currently relying on our venture capital to keep his firm afloat. Do not make a mistake you cannot afford." Julian's face went entirely bloodless. His hand dropped to his side, as if he had been burned. Ethan didn't wait for a response. He opened the passenger door of the sleek black SUV for me, hand resting protectively over my head so I wouldn't bump it on the frame. Once I was safely inside, he closed the door, walked around to the driver's side, and got in. As the SUV pulled away from the curb, I looked in the side mirror. Julian was standing frozen on the sidewalk, Serena fiercely arguing with him and pulling on his arm, but his eyes were glued to the departing car. For the first time in my life, Julian Vance looked completely powerless. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care. The drive to Ethan's apartment was quiet, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was the quiet of two people who had just crossed a massive threshold and were letting the dust settle. I looked down at the gold band on my ring finger. It was elegant, simple, and inlaid with a tiny, brilliant diamond. Ethan had given it to me during the brief ceremony inside. "Is the ring too tight?" Ethan asked, noticing my gaze. "No, it's perfect," I said, looking over at him. "Ethan, about what you said back there. To Julian. About his family's project. Did you mean it?" Ethan kept his eyes on the road, his hands relaxed on the steering wheel. "Of course. I don't make empty threats, Maya. And I don't tolerate people treating my family with disrespect." "Family." He considered me family already. "But we only met once before today," I said softly, the reality of what I had done finally sinking in. "Our families arranged the blind date, yes, but you could have married anyone. Why me? Why did you agree to this so quickly?" Ethan navigated the SUV into the private underground parking garage of a luxury high-rise in the heart of the city's prestigious residential district. He parked the car, turned off the engine, and turned in his seat to look at me. "Do you remember the charity gala at the St. Jude Children's Hospital 3 years ago?" he asked. I frowned, trying to recall. Yes. I was volunteering there. I was helping the kids with their art therapy session in the back room, because I didn't have a ticket for the main hall. "I was there," Ethan said, his eyes softening. "I had escaped the main hall because I couldn't stand the fake smiles and corporate networking. I ended up near the art room. I saw you. There was a little boy who had spilled paint all over his clothes and was crying because he thought his mother would be angry. You didn't hesitate. You knelt right down in your nice dress, dipped your fingers in the paint, and told him that now you were both messy, so it was a masterpiece." I felt a blush creep up my neck. I forgot about that." "I didn't," Ethan said. "When my grandmother started pressuring me to find a wife, someone respectable, someone who wasn't just interested in the Carter name, she showed me a list of eligible women from families we did business with. Your name was on it." I remembered the girl with the paint on her fingers, the girl who possessed a genuine kindness I hadn't seen in years. So, I asked for the date. He reached over, his hand resting gently next to mine on the center console. "And when we met last week, and you told me honestly that you wanted a quiet, stable marriage built on mutual respect because you were tired of chasing ghosts, I knew you were the only woman I wanted to share my life with. I don't care about your past, Maya. I care about your present. And your future." A tear slipped down my cheek, warm and unexpected. For 8 years, I had believed that I had to change myself, to be louder, prettier, more sophisticated, just to get Julian to notice me. Yet here was Ethan, a man who held the keys to half the city, telling me he had chosen me because of a moment of simple kindness he had witnessed 3 years ago. "Thank you, Ethan," I whispered, wiping the tear away. He smiled, a genuine, warm expression that made his handsome features soften incredibly. "Come on, let's go home." Ethan's penthouse was spectacular, but it wasn't the cold, sterile luxury I had expected. It had warm hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, plush rugs, and shelves filled with actual books rather than decorative trinkets. "Your things were delivered this morning," Ethan said, guiding me down a wide hallway. "I had the housekeeper arrange them in the master suite, but please, feel free to rearrange anything. This is your home now." The master suite was massive, featuring a king-sized bed, a walk-in closet, and a private balcony. On the bed lay my suitcases, untouched. "I have some work to finish in the study," Ethan said, sensing that I needed some time to decompress and settle in. "Take your time. We'll have dinner sent up around 7. If you need anything, just call out." "Okay, thank you." Once he closed the door, I finally let out a long breath. I walked over to the vanity, looked at myself in the mirror, and began unzipping the simple wedding dress. As I hung it up in the spacious closet, next to Ethan's neat rows of suits, a profound sense of peace washed over me. I showered, changed into comfortable loungewear, and spent the afternoon unpacking my things. Placing my books on his shelves, my skincare products in the master bathroom next to his cologne, felt incredibly grounding. At 7 o'clock, there was a gentle knock on the door. I opened it to find Ethan standing there, having changed into a casual cashmere sweater and dark trousers. "Dinner is here," he said. We ate at the dining table overlooking the glittering city lights. Ethan had ordered from an exquisite French restaurant, but the conversation was entirely unpretentious. We talked about our favorite books, our childhood memories, excluding Julian, and our daily routines. I discovered that despite his formidable reputation in the business world, Ethan was incredibly dry-witted, intelligent, and deeply attentive. He didn't check his phone once during dinner. He listened to me as if every word I said was of the utmost importance. By the time we retired to our respective rooms, we had agreed beforehand to take things slow, with me staying in the master suite and Ethan using the spacious guest suite down the hall. I felt a warmth in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a decade, I went to sleep without crying and without wondering why I wasn't enough. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of domestic bliss. Living with Ethan was shockingly easy. We quickly fell into a comfortable routine. We had breakfast together every morning before he left for the office, and we spent our evenings sharing dinner and watching movies or reading. Ethan was a man of action rather than empty words. If I casually mentioned that I liked a certain type of pastry, it would appear on the kitchen counter the next morning. If I mentioned I was feeling cold, the thermostat would be adjusted before I could even reach for a blanket. He treated me with a gentle, unwavering respect that slowly began to heal the deep, invisible scars Julian had left behind. But of course, the past has a habit of clawing its way back into the light. It started with the phone calls. My phone rang during lunch on a Tuesday. It was an unknown number, but when I answered, Julian's voice came rushing through the receiver. "Maya? Don't hang up. Please just listen to me." He sounded frantic, his voice rough and devoid of his usual smug confidence. "Julian," I said, my voice cold. "How did you get this number?" "I blocked you." "I'm using Brad's phone," he said quickly, his breathing heavy. "Maya, we need to talk. Seriously. This whole marriage thing, it's a joke, right? You're playing a character. You can't honestly be married to Ethan Carter. Do you know who he is? He's a cold-blooded shark. He's using you for some corporate image cleanup or something. He doesn't love you, Maya. He can't." I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache coming on. "Julian, I am legally married to Ethan. We signed the papers. We live together. It is not a joke." "No, I don't believe you." Julian raised his voice, a hint of his old arrogance slipping back in. "You loved me for 8 years. You don't just stop loving someone in a week and marry a stranger." "I know you, Maya. You're doing this because you're angry at me. Look, I'm sorry about the bet, okay? It was just a stupid joke with the guys. I didn't think you'd get so hurt. And Serena and I are having problems anyway. She's been screaming at me because my dad's company lost the Carter investment. She only cares about the money." I let out a soft, humorless laugh. "And you didn't? You only cared about using me to boost your ego, Julian. You didn't care about my feelings when you made me a laughingstock in front of your friends." "I do care," he pleaded, sounding desperate. "Maya, please. Just meet me. One last time. Just the two of us. Let's talk about the promise. You're 30 now. We can make it work. I'll make it up to you, I swear." "The promise was for last year, Julian," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "And even if it were for today, I wouldn't marry you. Because I've finally met a real man. Goodbye, Julian." "Maya, wait." I hung up and immediately blocked Brad's number as well. My hands were shaking slightly, but this time, it wasn't from sorrow. It was from anger. How dare he? How dare he think he could just snap his fingers and have me run back to him after everything he had put me through? That evening, when Ethan came home, he immediately noticed my mood. "What's wrong, Maya?" he asked, setting his briefcase down and walking over to where I sat on the sofa. I sighed and told him about the phone call. "Julian called me from a friend's phone. He's losing his mind, Ethan. He actually had the nerve to ask me to leave you and get married to him." Ethan's eyes darkened, a cold, dangerous glint reflecting in them. He sat down next to me, taking my hand. "Did he threaten you?" "No." He was begging. "He said his father's company is in trouble because you pulled the investment." I looked at Ethan. "Did you actually do that?" "Yes," Ethan said without a shred of hesitation. I told him I would. The Vance family's firm was already underperforming, and their conduct, specifically Julian's conduct toward my wife, proved to me that they lacked the integrity and stability required for a partnership with Carter Enterprises. It was a sound business decision, Maya. And a highly satisfying one. I couldn't help but smile. He also said we're having a fake marriage for a corporate image cleanup. Ethan chuckled, a low, rich sound. He leaned in slightly, his face only inches from mine. "A corporate image cleanup? I think my image was perfectly fine before. Though, having a beautiful, intelligent wife by my side certainly doesn't hurt." His eyes drifted down to my lips, and for a second, the air between us grew thick with tension. My heart fluttered, not with the old, anxious panic I felt with Julian, but with a deep, magnetic anticipation. Slowly, deliberately, Ethan leaned in and kissed me. It was a gentle, testing kiss at first, but as I wrapped my arms around his neck, he pulled me closer, deepening the kiss. It was filled with a quiet passion, a promise of security, and a warmth that melted the last remaining remnants of my old doubts. When he finally pulled back, his breathing was slightly uneven. He rested his forehead against mine. Our wedding is in 2 weeks, Maya, he whispered. I want the whole world to see that you are mine. Especially Julian Vance. The days flew by, and soon, it was the 9th of the month, the night before our wedding. The Grand Pierre Hotel had been completely booked for our ceremony. Ethan's team had handled the logistics flawlessly, but we had insisted on keeping the guest list relatively intimate, just close friends, business partners, and our families. Of course, Julian and Serena had kept their invitations. I knew Julian would try something. He was too proud, too desperate to let me go without a fight. That evening, I was at the Grand Pierre, staying in the bridal suite to prepare for the early morning preparations. Ethan was staying in a separate suite on a different floor, respecting the tradition of not seeing the bride before the ceremony. At around 8 p.m., there was a knock on my door. Thinking it was the hotel staff delivering my dinner, I opened it without looking. Instead, Julian stood in the hallway. He looked terrible. His hair was messy, his clothes were wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He smelled faintly of alcohol. Maya, he breathed, stepping forward before I could shut the door. He wedged his foot in the frame. Please. Just 5 minutes. That's all I ask. Get out, Julian, I said, trying to push the door shut, but he was stronger than me. I'll call security. Call them, he cried, his voice cracking. But let me speak first. Please, Maya. I'm begging you. I looked at him, feeling a sudden surge of exhaustion. If I didn't let him speak, he would keep stalking me. I needed to end this, once and for all. 5 minutes, I said, stepping back and letting him enter the suite. I left the door wide open. And don't even think about coming close to me. Julian walked into the luxurious suite, looking around with a bitter expression. He really spared no expense, did he? The Grand Pierre, the designer dresses. He's just buying you, Maya. He isn't buying me anything, Julian, I said, standing near the window, my arms crossed. He is treating me the way a husband should treat his wife. Something you wouldn't understand. I do understand. Julian took a step toward me, his eyes wild. I was stupid, Maya. I admit it. I was terrified of commitment, and I was terrified of how much power you had over me. You loved me so much, and it scared me. So I pushed you away. I rejected you, because I thought you'd always be there. I thought no matter what I did, you'd never leave. He pulled a small, velvet box from his pocket and flipped it open. Inside was a modest diamond ring. Look, he said, his voice trembling. I bought this. I broke up with Serena yesterday. She was furious. She threw a vase at me, but I don't care. I don't want her. I want you, Maya. Leave him. Come with me. We can run away right now. We can get married for real, just like we promised when we were kids. I looked at the ring in the box, then looked up at Julian's desperate, pleading face. 8 years ago, even 1 year ago, this moment would have been my ultimate dream. I would have screamed with joy, thrown my arms around his neck, and happily walked into the sunset with him. But now? I felt absolutely nothing. The dream had died a long time ago, buried under 99 rejections and a mountain of public humiliation. Julian, I said quietly, do you know what the saddest part of this is? He blinked, hope flickering in his eyes. What? The saddest part is that you don't actually love me, I said. You only want me because someone else has me. You only want me because your pride is wounded. If I walked away with you right now, within a month, you'd go back to ignoring me, making bets with your friends, and treating me like trash. Because you don't know how to value anything until you've lost it. That's not true, he yelled, tears spilling over his eyes. I love you, Maya. I've always loved you. No, you didn't. A deep, cold voice interrupted from the doorway. Julian spun around. Ethan stood there, his tall frame filling the doorway. He was dressed in a dark suit, his expression carved from stone. Behind him were 2 burly security guards. Ethan, I breathed, feeling an instant wave of relief. Ethan walked into the room, ignoring Julian entirely, and came straight to my side. He wrapped an arm around my waist, pulling me close. Are you all right? I'm fine, I said, leaning into him. He was just leaving. Ethan turned his gaze to Julian. It was a look of pure, unadulterated contempt. Mr. Vance, Ethan said, his voice deadly quiet. You have exactly 30 seconds to walk out of this hotel on your own 2 feet. If you do not, my security team will drag you out through the lobby in front of the press who are currently gathered outside. And tomorrow morning, my lawyers will file a restraining order that will make your life extremely difficult. Julian glared at Ethan, his knuckles white as he clutched the ring box. You think you've won, Carter? She loved me for 8 years. You're just a rebound. She'll never love you the way she loved me. Ethan looked down at me, his eyes softening into a warm, incredibly tender expression, before looking back at Julian. I don't need her to love me the way she loved you, Mr. Vance, Ethan said, his voice ringing with absolute certainty. Because the way she loved you is filled with pain, neglect, and insecurity. I intend to spend the rest of my life making sure she loves me with peace, happiness, and absolute security. Now, get out." Julian stood frozen for a few seconds, looking at the two of us. He saw the way Ethan held me, not like a trophy, but like something precious he would protect with his life. He saw the way I looked at Ethan, with a calm, deep trust that Julian had never, in 8 years, managed to earn. The realization finally, truly broke him. With a choked sob, Julian turned, dropped the ring box onto the carpet, and ran out of the room, past the security guards. The suite fell silent. Ethan let out a breath, turning to face me. He looked genuinely worried. "I'm sorry, Maya. I should have had tighter security on your floor." "It's okay," I said, reaching up to cup his cheek. "Actually, I'm glad he came." Ethan tilted his head. "Why?" "Because seeing him standing there, holding that ring, I realized something," I said, looking into Ethan's deep, dark eyes. "I realized that the girl who loved Julian Vance died a long time ago. And the woman standing here today is completely, utterly, and happily in love with the man standing in front of her." Ethan's eyes widened slightly, a sudden, brilliant warmth flooding them. "Maya, do you mean that?" "Yes," I whispered. "I love you, Ethan. Not as a rebound. Not as a marriage of convenience. I love you for who you are." Ethan didn't say another word. He pulled me into his arms and kissed me with a fierce, passionate intensity that left me breathless. It was a kiss that sealed our vows long before we walked down the aisle. The next day, the Grand Pierre Hotel was bathed in golden autumn sunlight. The grand ballroom was decorated with thousands of white roses and delicate fairy lights. The guest list was filled with influential figures, but to me, the only person who mattered was standing at the end of the aisle. When the double doors opened and I walked out in the main wedding dress, a breathtaking, floor-length gown with intricate lace details and a long, flowing train, the entire room fell silent. I kept my eyes locked on Ethan. He was wearing a classic black tuxedo, looking incredibly handsome. As I walked toward him, I saw a rare, emotional shimmer in his eyes. When my father placed my hand in Ethan's, Ethan squeezed it gently. "You look absolutely beautiful, Mrs. Carter," he whispered. "Thank you, Mr. Carter," I whispered back. The ceremony was elegant and moving. When we exchanged our vows, every word felt like a promise written in stone. When Ethan slid the matching platinum band onto my finger, I knew that my life had finally, truly begun. As we turned to face the guests as husband and wife, the room erupted into thunderous applause. Among the crowd, near the back, I caught a brief glimpse of 2 people, Julian and Serena. They had somehow managed to sneak into the back of the hall, perhaps hoping to see a disaster, or perhaps Julian simply couldn't help himself. But there was no disaster. Julian looked completely defeated, his eyes red and hollow. Serena was standing a few feet away from him, looking bitter and miserable, the distance between them vast and unbridgeable. They had destroyed what they had, and they had lost the only genuine thing in their lives. But I didn't linger on them. I looked up at my husband, who was smiling down at me with an expression of pure, unadulterated happiness. "Shall we go to our reception, my love?" Ethan asked, offering his arm. "Yes, please," I said, wrapping my arms securely around his. We walked down the aisle, hand in hand, leaving the ghosts of the past behind us. Ahead of us lay a lifetime of warmth, respect, and a love that would never have to beg to be seen.